welcome one and all. It's time. Yet another red hot, spicy, tingling Age of Sigmar tournament report. This time, the big news is no Longstrikes. So, how's that going to work exactly? Well, why don't we take a look? So this is the Realmgate Rebellion 4 from the TSN Arena in Nottingham. And there we go. This is the first time I've ever tried, I think the only time, Stormcast one drop list at an event. So all we have is Krondys. None of the other heroes make the cut. Everything else is designed to benefit from the powers of Krondys, mostly. So, Krondys is obviously the general, can't take any weird upgrades, it's a named character, so you're missing out on some stuff in list building there. Got everyone else in the general's regiment, of course, so 6 Paladors with the javelins. I think they would combo quite well with Krondys because he's got 2 ways of debuffing the enemy's armour. For example, the Purple Sun, he's also got a spell that can do it as well. So their mediocre rend on all their attacks should hopefully be buffed by Krondys, which should mean they can do tremendous damage. We shall see though. Then we've got 6 Prosecutors who are in a similar boat. They don't have much rend. They want to get the charge off, and they're not that expensive. So if you can use them optimally, potentially a good unit there. So these 2 units are going to be good candidates for getting extra rend against specific unit types from the Honor Guard abilities, because they lack rend in general, and they're fast enough so you can pick out those units that you want to hit generally with both of them. Then, 6 Questors, who mainly I keep picking them because I think they look cool, and it took me a long time to paint the ridiculous feather cloaks they've got on their backs. But other than that, they do a decent job anyway. They're good at holding objectives, especially if it's their quest-marked objectives, so they get their ward save. They're very efficient for the cost, for the number of wounds they have. And they can do some reasonable damage, nothing too terrifying. However, terrifying damage, 6 Grandhammer Annihilators, that is one of the most terrifying damage dealing units in the game. And if they get to hit something, that something is definitely going to feel it. They have to actually get into combat first, so they'll drop down from the sky. Someone will probably redeploy away from them, so ideally you want to be dropping them down within, or just 9 inches away from 2 units. So if one redeploys, you can charge the other one. So there's only 1 important enemy unit, then they're not that great at getting in on the turn they come down. So in that case, probably I'm going to be looking to bring them in if I'm going second, so that I can potentially get a double turn, which is when they're much more likely to get into combat. Because, knowing my luck, they'll probably fail a lot of their charges. So that is it, that's the 5 units. I've also got the Purple Sun and the Shackles ready to go. I never really seem to use the Shackles because Krondys has accessed such good spells. The -1 charge dice spell with an 18-inch range is really good, and also 18-inch range on the -1 to armor saves, or to hit rolls, or to rend, which are also good. And then when you're close enough, 12 inches for the -1 to wound, which is quite difficult to come by in the game, negatives to wound. So generally, Shackles aren't going to be coming up. Purple Sun probably will, takes up a nice bit of space, and you can reduce enemy saves further with it. So the plan is, kill everything. Splat my units into their units, try and debuff their armour, and see whether this army has the punch that I'm looking for. Because there's no Longstrikes in there. What would have to go if you wanted to put Longstrikes in? Pretty much they're competing with the Grandhammer Annihilators and the Paladors. And that's it. Those 3 units are similarly priced. So that's what you're looking at. I think I'm about 40 points under the limit in this list. But you can't squeeze anything in for that amount, and I didn't have any spots left in the regiment anyway, so I couldn't take one thing out and then bring in like 2 cheaper units for a different point total. Let's see how it goes then. That's the plan. We've obviously got the portal. So, close-ups. Close-ups. Close-ups of Paladors. You can see they've got eyeballs on the Griff charges. A weirdly focused picture of Krondys there. And round 1, it is the Questor's Nightmare. It's the Vice. So their quest-marked objective is going to disappear at the end of round 1. So they really don't like that, because we start off with 4 objectives in the outer area there, and then they move in over the course of the game until the last 2 turns when it's only the centre that's being fought over. So what do I not want to face on a battle plan like this? Anything that can just put loads of wounds into the middle of the table, and they can start off in this sort of area, just trailing back onto the starting objectives, and then hold this area securely, knowing that they have so many wounds, just big massive blobs of units that can eventually just get to the middle by the end, and I won't be able to do enough damage to get through them. That's the nightmare, I think. The best case scenario would be, it's not the worst to go up against like shenanigan teleporty armies, because there's only a couple of objectives on your side active at a time, and then when it gets to the middle, if you're sitting on it with loads of your units, it's no good the enemy being able to teleport all over the place. They're not going to be on that objective. So, the Annihilators starting in the sky, of course, they can get the full power. We've got Paladors and Krondys on the left, Questors and Prosecutors hanging out by the portal. The reason for that is because if you put the Questors on the table, they then pick a quest marked objective, and both them and the Prosecutors can then have Finest Hour used on them and then teleport through the portal to do some fighting. The Prosecutors in particular, Finest Hour, then a 3 dice charge from 9 inches away is a pretty good chance at getting in there. And if you start them in the sky, you can't use Finest Hour because that's in the hero phase and they're not on the table yet. The Questors obviously have their own teleport as well, so they get 2 teleports if they stay near this thing. But what am I up against? What horrible filth is it? Let's have a look. I'm going to pull up the list, but I can tell you that it's quite pustule encrusted, this list. Let me just crack that open for you. So, it is the Maggot Kin of Nurgle. And who is in there? Let's see. So, General's Regiment is Bloab Rotspawned, which I think is this guy here. Very stylish. With a reinforced unit of Putrid Blight Kings. Now, there's a few of those, so I'm not sure exactly which one is his, but I'm going to guess it's this one in front here. Then the second regiment, there was a Rotbringer Sorcerer, and I'm not going to be able to remember which one that is. There's a hero there. Heroes around here, is that one a hero? There's a Sorcerer in there somewhere. And the Sorcerer has, in that regiment, a Lord of Blights, and another reinforced unit of Putrid Blight Kings. So we're up to 20 Putrid Blight Kings already. Then in Regiment 2, there's another Rotbringer Sorcerer. And that is joined by a reinforced unit of Putrid Blight Kings, up to 30. And then a non-reinforced unit of Putrid Blight Kings. So 35 Blight Kings. 5 of them are out here just towing onto the corner objective. And I think that's one of the sorcerers there in the corner hanging out. So that would make this one the other sorcerer. So, not the greatest start, I think. This is a very difficult list on the Vice, I reckon, for the reasons I outlined. And we shall see how it goes anyway. But looking very nice and nurgly. I'm only 1 drop, so I choose to give away the turn. And my opponent goes for Seize the Centre, which is a nice easy one because I don't want to get into combat just yet anyway, so I've not deployed very far forward. And spreading out of the Blight Kings, which is what I do want to see actually. I don't want to be facing multiple units at once. So what I don't want to do is just splat in there, kill a couple and then die. So I'm going to be looking to kill what I attack. So I'm looking for things that are out on their own that I can throw a couple of units at and then try and finish them off completely. So you can see all the main objective areas are covered from this side. These aren't scoring yet, any of these 3 areas, but for later in the game you'll want to be there. And that's what I'm looking at from my side of the table now. So my immediate thought is one of these units of Blight Kings are probably going to be what I'm going to try and kill. I don't want to go in the middle because that's where the big evil boss is as well, in addition to Blight Kings, so I'd rather just take 1 unit out without going near that guy yet. So, 8 points scored, because 2 objectives held, and I hold the other 2, so not holding more than me yet. My turn 1 coming up, so I go for Do Not Waver. 2 units fight, no units die. Why do I feel confident about this? Well, because I think the units I can throw into combat are going to be quite powerful. I'm hoping to just completely wipe out this one unit of Blight Kings there. I'm going to use Crondis, hopefully, to put -1 charge dice onto these Blight Kings, which makes their possibility of a counter charge minimal, or 0 if I get far enough away. So that should help keep my units alive. And if I somehow don't make it all the way into combat with some of my units because they fail the charge, I've also got this, what's it even called? The Gnarl, is it the Gnarlmore? The Feculent Gnarlmore? The Nurgle Tree of Doom sitting there that I could get into combat with as well. So 2 units just need to fight and then not die. So I'm not going to be using the Prosecutors for this job because that would be silly, because they're good at fighting but not so good at living. So they're not the tools for this job, even though with my sub-faction, these Sentinels of the Bleak Citadel, the Prosecutors are going to get a ward save throughout the whole game because they're the only unit eligible to actually get that benefit, so it's just going to be on them the whole time. So that'll help their survivability a little bit. Okay, so Finest Hour on Crondis, because I'm trying to get him straight into combat. You can see he's actually... Has he already taken wounds or has the dice just fallen over? I don't remember him taking any damage yet. Let's have a look. So... Yeah, I don't think so. I think the dice has just been knocked over. So the Paladors steam in, get into the Blight Kings, and with the assistance of their shooting ability, and Crondis putting -1 to save on that unit of Blight Kings, they are down to 1. And all-out attack as well, but they are diseased now. So the way disease works is that at the end of the turn, it starts doing damage to you while you're diseased, and if you use a healing ability, instead of healing, you just get rid of the disease instead. I'm just observing the chat here. We've got... Do I attempt to pronounce this? Would that be like Heisingen? And then we've got Jack in there as well. Good evening. So the Annihilators drop in, but as you can imagine, let's have a look at that bit of the table they dropped into. So I think it's up here, but they didn't make it to anybody. Failed their charge, as you'd expect from Annihilators, so they're just sitting there waiting for the next turn. So, murdered loads of Blight Kings. Would have been nice to finish off the entire unit, but that's pretty much the goal of this list right there. So we've already mostly got rid of 1 unit. I just want to get in there, delete 1 thing at a time, not leave it alive, and see how it goes. So far, so good. 8 points to me as well. Because... let's see, who else got to fight for do not waver purposes? Oh yeah, Crondis. So Crondis got in there as well to fight them, which is why there was so much damage done, and then I used power through to get away with Crondis, so that I'm not just sitting there waiting to be charged by all the forces of Nurgle. They are going to have to actually come through this gap to get to me now. And also just to be on this objective for round 2. So you can see I'm towing onto both objectives now, over here, ready for the next round. Priority. So my opponent gets it and goes for take their land, which should be a nice easy one with this bit of terrain. Some Blight Kings are going to go and hang out on that. You can see I've got -1 charge dice on these Blight Kings. And yeah, maybe that was the damage that Crondis actually took when he was in combat to get down to 13. You can see that these, I think this is the bridge. Is it the bridge? Some kind of portal anyway, so units can go in and pop out the other side. Manifestation. We've got Bloab going past the Gnarlmore, surrounded by loads of Blight Kings, so they're all converging in this one area, and I think I attempt to redeploy with Crondis, but I don't roll very high. Blight Kings make it into the Paladors, so a second unit has got in there now. And Bloab gets into Crondis. I thought I'd get a nice little picture of them about to do battle. Takes another wound despite all-out defense. Bloab takes some wounds as well though. I think most people seem to count up on wounds, but I always count down, just so people can look, and if they're not familiar with the unit, they know how many wounds are left just by looking at the dice. That's the way I look at it. Paladors, toe-to-toe against Blight Kings. So despite the -1 charge dice, that unit still made it in. And there's -1 to save on the other unit, which I think is just the lone Blightkin who's left on his own. Blight King. So Palador's slowly getting whittled down, but the enemy are as well. And it's not looking too bad at the moment, because if I'm going next, then I like the chances of the Annihilators making it into combat now. Okay, so my opponent scores 8 again. Into my turn. And I go for take their land as well. And the Questors just teleport through the portal all the way up to the top of the table to hold this piece of terrain. Grondis decides to stay in combat with Bloab, and is now down to 1 wound after disease and everything. The Annihilators do smash in with the Paladors. They just mash a load of Blight Kings, which is nice, and almost kill one of the wizards. And those are some saves, I think, that I rolled. And I think that was with the Annihilators when the Blight Kings hit them. I think those were my saves. And it was on a 4+. So I only failed 2 of them out of all those. So the Annihilator's doing well to live there. And on the one hand, it feels like this game's going quite well. I'm killing models. On the other hand, the enemy are embedded in the centre where the points are going to be scored late on. And my units are also getting whittled down at the same time. So even though I've got more left right now, that could all change very quickly. So, nope. Right. On to the next round. We've both got 16 points so far. My opponent gets the priority again and goes for Slay the Entourage. And picks Grondis, because he's only got 1 wound left. Seems like a good idea. And then Blight Kings hanging out on the portal. Grondis goes down, as you can imagine, with only 1 wound remaining. Annihilators and Paladors against the other Blight Kings keeps going. And you can see the various buff effects that are dropped around here as well. Like -1 to wound against this unit, +2 to move against or on one of these units here. The Annihilators get annihilated. Paladors are still up. Most of the Blight Kings are dead. So, it's looking a little less rosy after that turn. I think what would have been different had I got that priority? Pretty much just who would have gone first in combat. That's the only thing that would have been affected really there. I think Grondis probably still would have died because he only had 1 wound left, and if I'd retreated him, he would have just died from that anyway. So we'll see. We're still on the 4 objectives here, not the 2 yet, so I should still be able to score some decent points in this round. On to my turn. And I go for take the flanks, which I believe I'm already set up for. I've got Paladors there who could retreat, and I've got the Questors already hanging out there as well. So, Questors do just that. Paladors retreat, take a bit of damage, but that's fine. Because if they stay there, they could get killed by the Blight Kings, but now my opponent has to actually deal with them, and I can always shoot them, and retreat and shoot and still charge as well, potentially, with the Paladors, which is good. Then, some fresh Annihilators come in, steam into the Blight Kings, and there is 1 left. So we've got 1 big unit of Blight Kings left. We've got Bloab, we've got the small unit of Blight Kings. I've got the Questors, the Prosecutors, who teleported over here with Finest Hour on them, but failed their charges after Bloab redeployed a little bit away from them. Also failed the charge in terms of reaching the Gnarlmaw as well, which would have been good enough. And the Annihilator's doing a decent job up there. So I only score 6 points because I did get the flanks, but I didn't score a lot on the objectives because I only hold, let's see, I think Bloab had taken this one. So maybe I only hold this one here, perhaps. Priority. And I get the opportunity of a double. So let's get stuck in and try and kill everybody. Because if we look at the situation heading into the double, if I don't take it, what happens? The Annihilators die. My opponent starts scoring big because I'm not on the centre, which is where you want to be in the last 2 turns. So even though it's felt like it's been going okay, this is this kind of situation I was expecting to be in at the end, towards the end of the game, where there's a big blob of wounds on the middle objective and I can't get to it because I'm not chewing through things fast enough. The damage output in this list, unless you can really combo and get Grondis all those debuffs off onto armour, it's not that ridiculously killy outside of the Annihilators. So I get to go first, but I don't think I'm far enough behind to do a battle tactic though. So the Paladors are moving in, the Prosecutors get into blow up, the Questors decide they're going to steam in and fight the Blight Kings as well. I have to actually charge this piece of terrain, or this manifestation, first to reach them. And I really just want to be in range of this objective with a unit, so that the enemy doesn't get bonus points for holding it unopposed next turn. So you can see I finest houred and all-out defensed Questors for this round. And not too much action. The Paladors fail their charge, the Prosecutors do get in, but there's no real mega killing situation going on there. So I think I forgot to display how many points I got. In fact, no, it is 0. Yeah, because this is the only one that's on now. And I had no battle tactic available. I just needed to try and get as close as possible to the enemy and try and limit the scoring that my opponent could do in the next round. But that's not exactly worked out, because there's a lot of meat there to chew through. So my opponent goes for Do Not Waver on turn 4. 2 units fight, no units die. It looks like a safe bet. The Blight Kings have got loads left, and the other unit of 5 steam into the Questors as well. And Blow Up is going to try and eat up all the Prosecutors. Eating most of them, leaving just one behind, and then the Questors get punched around a bit. One Annihilator remains in the battle in the top left, but that area is irrelevant now. It's all about this spot here. And you'll see all the Questors are now dead. So, it's pretty much game over. But we do still have the priority of the next round, which I get, so I'm going first, and I go for Slay the Tyrants, which is the only thing that's physically possible with one unit left. So all I can do is move forward, try and get a long charge, and kill a hero. Let's see how that works out for me. Well, it didn't. I did get into combat, but then got killed. So then in my opponent's turn 5, 6 points were scored. I hadn't flipped over the turn dice though. And then you can enjoy the #1 beverage of the TSN arena. When it's there in the fridge, you better get there quick because it goes fast. There's a real taste on the premises for Mango Tango. Okay, moving on. We are now onto Scorched Earth. And let me just grab my opponent's list here from the internet. Okay, so Scorched Earth, you can burn objectives in your opponent's half of the table if you control and contest them. But, in my experience, people don't do that very often, because if you're on an objective, you generally don't want to be getting rid of it. It is definitely strategic and useful, but I don't see people doing it very much. So I think maybe this battle plan is one that could do with a little bit of a rewrite, perhaps. If people aren't playing it the way you intend it to be played, then maybe something's wrong with it. I would say the Vice, and which is the other one I don't like, the Jaws of Gallet. I think they have some issues as well, but I won't go into those right now. So it's the Daughters of Cain. So similar layout to last time, except I'm making sure to touch all the objectives at the start of the game, so I'm spread out all the way across the back line with the Annihilators in the sky on their own. And I've got the Questors and the Prosecutors in range, so they could be teleported through this if they want to at some point. And my opponent's list. So we've got Morathi. So there's Big Morathi and Baby Morathi hanging out at the back there. And the way Morathi works now is that you can only inflict 3 wounds to her per turn. And she's got 12 wounds, but she's never allowed to heal. So if you're doing the maximum, you can get her down in 4 turns, which is 2 battle rounds if it happens on each of the player turns. So you have to either invest and get rid of Morathi, or just leave her alone as much as possible. Because if you're not going to kill her, then just doing wounds is worthless. You have to be spreading out that damage over a long period of time. So anything that just does a big alpha strike and is a glass cannon and does loads of damage and then dies is worthless against her. So Prosecutors, not the best matchup against Morathi. Annihilators, not really. Shooty units can be quite good because you don't have to get in combat with her to let her fight every turn as well. You can just chip away those 3 wounds each time. And we've got, other than Morathi, there is 10 Blood Sisters, and 5 Doomfire Warlocks. So, can I see where they all are? There's the Doomfire Warlocks. And then what else have we got? We've got a Melusi Iron Scale, who is a snake hero, with 5 Canary Life Takers, which are these ones here, waiting on the edge of the table to pop up somewhere, and 10 more Blood Sisters. So they are the snake ladies, and they're the spear version, not the shooty ones. Then there's also the Regiment of Renown, the Saviours of Cinderfall, who are hanging out off the table as well, waiting to come in. And I've played against them before and underestimated them before. So I won't be doing that again, so I'll be making sure that if I try and kill them, I put the sufficient tools in to do the job, rather than assuming that they're rubbish just because there's like a little old lady in there. They're weirdly different sized, the unit. There's one Stormcast dude in there, and there's a couple of heroes, which so they're technically 2 separate units, but they want to hang out together because they get ward saves out of it. So, what is my plan? Initially, I'm going to try and stay away from Morathi as much as possible and just focus on killing other things. So anything like Doomfire Warlocks, where it looks killable, try and get rid of them. And see how it goes, because the Daughters of Cain, they hit very hard, but they can't take much of a hit either. So hopefully that'll give me a chance to do some murder. Got a nice sideways picture here. So I give away the first turn. My opponent chooses Seize the Centre and puts the Saviours of Cinderfall and the Doomfire Warlocks there. And starts throwing out some manifestations as well, which are kind of annoying, getting in my way potentially. So, 8 points scored, taking a load of objectives and doing a battle tactic. So, let's have a look. You can see that some of the snakes are hiding back, some of them have moved up with Morathi. He's going to be able to get into combat very soon. I don't want to fight prosecutors, they're the worst thing to fight her with. They may well do the 3 wounds, but then the whole unit will just get wiped by her probably. So, a unit of, weirdly enough, multiple units of 3 prosecutors would be better against her than a unit of 6, because you could just throw them in one at a time, do the wounds, then die. And you probably get decent value out of that if you can find a cheap unit that could do a small amount of guaranteed damage. But shooting would just be better against her anyway. I go for Do Not Waver, so 2 units fight, no units die. Crondis and the Paladors steam into the Doomfire Warlocks and the Saviours of Cinderfall, hoping to just murder everything in sight. Finest Hour and all-out attack on Crondis. And I do commit quite a lot of murder over there. All the Doomfire Warlocks are dead, and most of the Saviours of Cinderfall. So that bit went okay. On the other side, the Prosecutors are not interested in fighting Morathi, so they back up a bit. The Questors teleport onto the quest-marked objective, which is all the way over here. And all the enemies' quality units are right there. There are some off the table. The Canary are off the table, but they're really just objective grabbers, so I'm not worried about them. And I'm pleased that I was able to do a good amount of damage there. I then power through with Crondis back onto the objective again. You see I got the purple sun out as well, but it wasn't able to do much. There's a bit of punching of manifestations going on in this turn as well. So, 10 points for me. Round 2, my opponent wins priority and goes for Take Their Land, which is very easy. Tenari Life Takers pop up and take this piece of land. Technically they are in countercharge range of Crondis, but it would be a very long shot for 2 man points. Doesn't seem like a great idea. 1 unit of Blood Sisters are chasing down the Prosecutors, who are regretting their decision to be positioned on the table now. They'd rather just be in the sky. Morathi is chasing after Crondis. Crondis redeploys a very small amount, I think it was just 1 inch. Because of that, Morathi makes the charge, and they're going to have an epic monster duel now. There you go, cinematic shot for you. Blood Sisters get into the Prosecutors. Morathi one-shots Crondis. So, Morathi did something like... Did I even roll any saves for Crondis, or was it just 20 mortal wounds? It was loads of mortal wounds anyway, I believe. So, Crondis is just dead from Morathi immediately. Now, if I'd redeployed 2 inches, she actually would have failed the charge, funnily enough, based on the roll. The Paladors finish off some of the Saviors of Cinderfall. And the Blood Sisters are going to start trying to murder the Prosecutors. You can see there's little tokens showing what they can do. So, they're all dead. Prosecutors are dead. So, the enemy have got 2 Blood Sister units, some little heroes, and Marathi's still up. I have lost Krondys and the Prosecutors, so that's not great. So, 8 points for the enemy. Then on my turn, take their land. Questors just pick a piece of land that was near them, so they're going to just take that. And the Paladors, let's see, there was 5 of them there. And 4 at the moment, so they're taking extra damage, I think. Bit of a yawn popped out there. So find a star on them. And they kill something. I don't know, I think they were just... Maybe they just hanging out on an objective? I feel like they were. But I do bring in my Grandhammer Annihilators, splat them into the Blood Sisters with a successful charge, and then just hammer all of them to death. So the Annihilator's doing great work there, and the enemy are looking a bit thin on the ground now, as well as I am. So another 8 points for me. So I'm still slightly in the lead, and I do get the priority in the next round, which is good. So the Paladors charge into the Manifestations, try and kill them a bit. And also, my tactic here at this point was, if the Paladors are in combat, retreat out of combat, shoot Marathi, do 3 wounds, and then charge back into combat with something different again. Just do that each turn, eventually rack up enough wounds so that she dies. The Annihilators end up in combat with the other Blood Sisters, but that obviously doesn't go quite so well, as you can see. There's not too many of them left right now. The Questors leave their favourite objective, where they have a ward save, to go and try and chase off the Canary, and they do not make their charge after a bit of a redeploy, I think. Then I've scored 4 points for that round, so not a whole lot indeed. And I don't know whether to be confident or not. Marathi is still up, but almost dead, so maybe she'll be scared to engage now. There are still some dangerous units around for both sides. My opponent goes for Slay the Entourage and wants to slay these 2 remaining Annihilators, which seems like it should be quite easy. The Canary spread out between 2 objectives, which I think... Yeah, that's fine, because they're already touching this one. So they're not trying to claim 2 of them by touching it, because this one's already the enemy's. What they want to do is string between the 2, and that would mean I can't then teleport anyone onto either of them, because it's going to be too big of a distance. So if you deploy on the edge of the objective there, 9 inches, they'll probably end up like here, so I wouldn't be able to actually deploy on it. So I don't think I marked the... Did I mark the score? So 1 Annihilator dies. I redeploy the Questors onto one of the objectives. And Marathi is going to try and kill the Paladors now. And they end up doing some damage to each other. And then the Paladors die. And the Annihilator dies. That's going to be a past battle tactic. A successful battle tactic, should I say. That makes it clearer. So I'm running out of units now. And a big round there for my opponent. I get first crack at round 4, and I go for attack on 2 fronts, take 2 objectives. The Questors can take 1. And... let's see. Did I just fail that objective? Because the Questors took this one. Did someone else take another? I don't think so. I think the Paladors just got horribly murdered. So I only score 4 points. So I do hold some objectives, but not enough. I had to get on another one. What I wanted to do was use the Paladors to attack this Sorcerer and then be on that objective and thus get the points. But didn't quite make it, so I had to fight this Marathi instead. Because I think that one is a Marathi. But just destroying her wouldn't have given me the objective though. So my scoring's drying up a bit. The enemy teleport the Blood Sisters, the Sneak Warriors of Doom, into my corner, because I've left a little crevice there. And you can see Marathi is heading for the Questors. They don't have their ward save because they're off their favourite objective, so they're not very happy about that. the end of the game, I go for Slay the Tyrants. And I think I actually succeed because I murder Marathi with the Questors at the last attempt. So you just have to do 3 wounds to her each time, and eventually she goes down. Then I haven't added points on for my opponent from turn 4 yet by the looks of the dice there. So my opponent ends up with... yeah, I don't think I've got it on there. I'll just look on this app here and tell you what the exact score was for the end of that game. So it ended... Daughters of Cain 40, Stormcast 34. Wow, wow, wow. So that game felt like it was going really well for a time there. Because you can see what happened when Marathi died. Everything disappeared. So there's only Questors, 1 unit of Blood Sisters, and the Canary unit alive. Just those 3. Everything else is dead. It seemed like there was more going on the table, but they were all manifestations. So when Marathi went, they all got zapped as well. So, a bit of a bloodbath, 2 kind of glass cannon-y armies. It feels weird calling Stormcast glass cannons because they've got such good armour. But, not a lot of wounds, generally. So the mortal wound output from any army is very dangerous. So Daughters of Cain have quite a lot of it. They have a lot of crit mortals, which Stormcast don't like, especially if you're not bringing any ward saves. Apart from the Prosecutors. And my turn, there's nothing I can do. So, there you go. On to the better part of Valour. So, this is a really bizarre battle plan. I'm not sure about this one. This is the one that... okay, how can I explain this in a way that won't make people's heads explode? So, you can become dominant on objectives, which gives you a bonus to control score. But to do that, you have to have killed an enemy unit who was also on the objective. And then after that, you gain control score, I think. Which is quite bizarre to think about, because if you've already killed things on the objective anyway, then why do you need a bonus to control score? So I don't think that one's too well thought through either. And it's against the horrible, grotesque, hideous ogres. So let me crack open that list for you right here. It is... Ogre Moor Tribes, the Beast Handlers subfaction, so it's all big monsters, and Kragnos. So how do we feel about this kind of list in Age of Sigmar, where there's like Sons of Behemat style lists where everything is a monster, but it's not Sons of Behemat? You see it sometimes, or you used to see it a lot with the multi-Magmadroth builds, and Ogres can definitely still do it. So, upon realising the abilities of all these Ogre units, I wasn't that confident in this game, because there's a lot of mortal wounds being splashed around when any of these things charge, and there's so many of them. So the general is Kragnos, with a Thundertusk Beast Riders unit. Then there's a Huskard on Thundertusk, this regiment, the next regiment, who is joined by Thundertusk Beast Riders again. Then there's another Huskard on Thundertusk, with 2 Beast Rider units. So, Beast Rider being just one thing. So we've got Kragnos, we've got a hero. I can't remember exactly which the other hero is, but there's 2 heroes and 4 other regular units. And they all hit very hard if they charge. Lots of mortal wound potential. Kragnos in particular has the potential for a huge amount of mortal wounds. In the sky I've got the Annihilators and the Prosecutors, because I didn't think I could hide particularly from the enemy here, because they've got such a huge movement distance they can do. They can. There's a prayer, I think, that lets them run and charge, and Kragnos gives people 3d6 charges. So where can you really hide? I don't have a good answer to that. So let's see what I can do. My plan, though, is going to be to just drop down and try and kill a couple of things and minimise the effects of the countercharge. Let's see how we go. Close-up of Kragnos there. By the way, mild spoiler, in Game 5, there's a baby Kragnos on the table. I can't remember what the name of the unit actually is, but it just looks like baby Kragnos. I'll show you when we get there. So I decided to go first this time, because I think, if we look at the table, if we look at the ridiculous speed of the Ogre Moor tribes and the 3 dice charges, I think I could lose half my army in turn 1. And we don't want that to happen. So I'm going to go first and choose take their land. So the Questors teleport onto their home marked objective. Quest marked objective. And wait for the enemy. The Paladors and the Annihilators are both trying to get in onto the enemy here. The Annihilators were hoping to charge Kragnos, but he backed away. So what they're wanting to do really was charge into this mug and then pile in and attack Kragnos. But he's gone too far for even that now, I think. So that's sad. Annihilator's not doing as much as you would hope in this event so far. They did have one really nice combat in the previous game against Daughters of Cain. And yeah, obviously enemy countercharges are going to be coming in. That's what command points are worth saving for with this ogre list, because you do a load of mortal wounds on the charge. So I do score 10 points though, because I've been teleporting around a bit, got onto lots of objectives, and got my tactic of controlling this bit of enemy land over there. Onto the enemy turn, and my opponent is going for... I might have missed it, but there's definitely a battle tactic anyway. So, let's talk about this situation here. What I wanted to do with the Paladors is stretch them out across there so that Kragnos can't go past the teacup, which is the enemy faction terrain, by the way. I didn't even know there were two variants of the faction terrain. I don't know if it's maybe sub-faction specific or something. But I think I've only ever seen the Maw pot, which I think is the one that heals you, not the one that actually damages the enemy. But that's what this one is, the damaging one, which I wasn't too aware that it existed until this game. So what the Paladors wanted to do was kind of string out along here and box in the enemy. So if the enemy really does hit hard on the charge and they want to get all over the place, getting into your juicy units, so that's why I put my beefiest unit in there first. When the Annihilators failed their charge as well, that changes plans because they're still a very potent weapon if I stop them getting charged in the meantime. So the Paladors just want to block up space, stop the enemy getting past them, and hang on as long as possible to their wounds so that next turn I can get the Annihilators in more easily and start killing things, because I have done some wounds, but not that much so far. So Kragnos is coming off around the left to try and get to this unit here, the Annihilators, and you can see that we've got one of the big fellas has already got into them, hoping to probably get to Krondis as well. He's a little bit behind. I did ask to make sure none of the enemies had the old charge you and then leap over the top of you abilities, but they do not, which is nice, because that would have been very annoying. And it would have made Krondis a big juicy target. Then, Annihilators start taking a bit of shooting damage and charge damage. And I decide, actually, I'm going to start peeling them off from this end to give Kragnos quite a difficult charge. But what really I should have been doing is taking them from this end, so that Kragnos charges them and has to get stuck here, instead of charging all the way down here now. So it was a bit too much ambition that I showed there, I think. Trying to prevent Kragnos getting into combat at all, whereas what I should have been doing is just allowing him to charge me and not reaching Krondis. And you can see all the Paladors eventually get killed there. And then Kragnos makes a big charge and gets all the way into Krondis. So this could be over very fast. We're looking at an almost turn 1 tabling potential here. And then into combat. Krondis takes a load of wounds. Annihilators take wounds. Cinematic shot, Krondis versus Kragnos. Slightly better one. More wounds taken for Krondis. And Krondis is dead. Most of the Annihilators dead, and now all of them are dead. So, what do we have left? Questors, and not much else. So, my opponent scores 10. I send my prosecutors in with Slay the Tyrants to try and slay the one wounded enemy hero, which I think was this one, who redeployed away, but they still got in, but then they failed and then they died. So the prosecutors are now all dead as well. And yeah, I think it was game over mid-turn 1, unfortunately. And logic told me that when there's a big Death Star of enemy units like that, you just want to avoid them and pick up points over the course of the game. My issue was that I was deploying first. So if I deploy them all in this corner, they all just deploy here. If I start running away, they're just going to score for the whole game. And if I ever do fight them, that's when I die. So instead I decided to try and take it to them with the Annihilators, who probably should have made a charge, because they could have just charged the teacup and then piled in to attack someone else, which would have killed at least one of them, you would hope, in one round. But they failed the charge, despite the enemy faction train being there. And then all the mortal wounds on the charge, all the shooting damage, all the mortal wounds dished out from the enemy terrain was too much for them and the Paladors. So, very short game this one's going to be. Into my turn. Do not slay a tyrant. My opponent seizes the centre. Nice easy one. Not much is going to happen over the course of the game now. I go for attack on 2 fronts. Take 2 objectives. The Questors... let's see. Oh no, my opponent went for attack on 2 fronts. And then took 2 objectives off me with the big Thunder Tusks. Not a lot I can do at the moment. So I go for Do Not Waver. 2 units fight, no units die. I bring in some fresh Paladors, teleport the Questors to the other side. And they both murder the... It's not the Morpot, what's the other version of it called? It was that one. So they both killed that, because that sounds safer than fighting enemy units. So I do pick up a few points, but it's obviously not going to help in this game. My opponent does take the flanks, which is very easy. I've got nothing to stop any of this now. Scores more big points. And on round 5, I go for Slay the Entourage. So I want to try and murder Kragnos now, but I think I do like 1 wound to him with the Paladors. So, not a great series of events there. My opponent does take their land, nice and easy, more big points. So, yes, considering that game was over in turn 1, what should I have done differently? Should I have run away from these things that have a threat range that's most of the table? Because there's a run and charge prayer, they have a 3 dice charge, so something's going to get in if I run away. Could I have kept more units in the sky until the enemy spread out a bit? Could I have even kept, like, Krondis in the sky, controversially? I don't think I've ever actually done that. But maybe it's the way to go against somebody like Kragnos, who just gets all the way across the table in one go and eats everybody. Oh yeah, when Kragnos killed... Let's see, when Kragnos killed Krondis, I think... How many mortal wounds was it? I think it was about 12 mortal wounds on the charge, and then the rest of the wounds were done in combat. So, a few points scored, because in round 5, my opponent gets a bit of take their land there. Into the next game. Shifting objectives. So, 1, 2, or 3. One of them is going to become the primary objective, which is worth more in each round. Down the middle of the table. So, Annihilators off the table as usual, everyone else on as usual. The Prosecutors are set up along with the Paladors, staring at the flanks, because if we look at the territory for this one, you can see it's quite small. So take the flanks is very easy. You just need to move from there to there and there to there. And you've got to take the flanks. Very simple one. So they're set up with that in mind. And I'm up against the filthy, verminous, disgusting rats. I don't know why I call all the enemy armies disgusting. Just talking from the Stormcast point of view. So let's open this verminous Skaven list. So it's the Warp Cog Convocation. Kronspine potentially in play. There is a Grey Seer with a Claw Lord, 1 unit of 20 clan rats, 1 reinforced unit of Rattling Guns, a reinforced unit of Storm Fiends. So the Storm Fiends, very powerful. It's 520 points for 6, so you know they're good. And they can do a lot of damage. The Rattling Guns, 340 points for 6 of them. So they'd be comparable, I would say, at that point level. They're quite a bit cheaper than Longstrikes. They have the same range, I think, but each model apparently has 3d6 shots. So each model, on average, is going to get like 10 shots. So about 60 would be just the average if they all get to shoot. So that is a very large amount of potential damage, as long as you can hit. And they do have ways of getting +1 to wound and more rend as well, which sometimes causes them to blow up. And then there's one more regiment with a Grey Seer, and another unit of Clan Rats, and another unit of Rattling Guns. So we're going to have to watch out for those. Not so concerned about the clan rats, because all these units are going to come back to life through gnaw holes as well. So what can I do? There's not many objectives, which is probably bad for me, because the enemy can just put big piles of clan rats on them, and if I go in to kill the clan rats, I then get shot to death by the rattling guns and the storm fiends. So I'm not feeling very confident, so I'm going to put the quest stores up early onto this objective and try and just hold against the tide of rats there with their ward saved. Gives them a decent chance. So I go first with take the flanks, which I've already set up for. So I've sent the Paladors out to the left, prosecutors out to the right. Quest stores just sit in the middle to make sure no one can move onto the objective without charging me. And then I used all that defense against some covering fire from the rattling guns and ended up losing one model against that. That was my first taste of rattling gun fire. 10 points, which we actually correct later on. It should be 9 because you only get 1 for the non-primary objectives each. So I don't hold this one. So it does get fixed later on though. So 9 points so far. Into my opponent's turn, ordain charge. So this is an interesting one. You have to charge with 2 units. You have to pick an objective controlled by your opponent. One of those units that charge must be contesting and controlling that objective at the end. So they want to try and take the middle objective. Let's see who's going to go for it. The Kronspine pops up, but there was nowhere really great for the Kronspine to be. So if we go back a second, the Kronspine ends up here because he can't fit there because it's too close to the Paladors, because I'm towed onto this objective and it's slightly too close. So I've cast -1 charge dice from Krondis onto these clan rats, because really I just want to stop them completing the battle tactic and charging onto the middle objective and taking it. So with -1 charge dice I can then redeploy a little bit and make it a bit harder maybe. The Storm Fiends pop down in front of the Paladors, and then charges are made. So you can see I only redeployed 1 inch, I think that's right. Yeah, redeployed 1 inch with the Questors. So this unit and the Claw Lord, I think there, should be able to get in. So yep, both those units get into combat. Even though this unit had -1 charge dice, so they didn't make it. But I still have to contend with all these rats and a hero. And that would be enough for the battle tactic as long as they control this piece of terrain, this objective at the end of the round. The Storm Fiends did not make a charge. They actually chose not to shoot at the Paladors because they didn't want to kill the closest one and then make it like an 11-inch charge. Or a 10-inch. So the Questors and the rats have had a good go at each other. One more Questor is down and loads of rats have been skewered. And there's just enough rats on there to control the objective as well. So the battle tactic is going to be successful. So that is 8 points for the enemy. Then, slay the entourage I decided to go for, because there's a little hero there. And there's this one unit, puny unit of, how many clan rats were there? There's like 7 of them left, so I just want to kill that unit. Because they're in the general's regiment, those clan rats. So you can see Krondis gets in there and kills them. Paladors get into the Storm Fiends, and they do some reasonable damage. I had Finest Hour on them as well. The Annihilators drop down, obviously pale their charge into the Storm Fiends, so they're just hanging out there. And the Prosecutors are running away from the enemy, because I don't want to lose them to the rattling guns. So what I'm thinking was, here would have been a great time to have 2 separate Prosecutor units. Because if I have 1, they're now kind of useless in what I want to use them for, because I want them to hit things at the back of the table. But I can't really do that, because as soon as I drop down, I would be in range to be shot with covering fire with 6 rattling guns that would probably kill the whole unit quite easily. If I had 2 units of 3, they could only covering fire against one of them. So at least one would then be able to make a charge and get into them and start killing them. So maybe there's one reason, another reason, not to have just reinforced units all the time. I do score 10. And hold on. Let's go back a second. Yep. So I slayed the entourage. And then into the Skaven turn. So, My opponent also goes for Slay the Entourage on Crondis. Let's see if that works out for them. Clan Rat's just consolidating their position on the right objective. This grey marker is representing the primary objective, by the way, during this game. All the Rattling guns move up to shoot Crondis. I save that command point to all-out defense him. Storm Fiends and the Paladors still going at it. The Storm Fiends have got a couple of things in there that can shoot in combat, but not much. The first unit of Rattling guns opens fire and murders an all-out defensed Crondis in one go. That's one unit of 6 Rattling guns. I think they ended up with something like 75 shots. Well, and out of that, because they have an explodey ability, where if they roll a 6, I think it adds an extra hit. So I ended up having to roll with Crondis, because I think they got extra rend on their shots as well, so I think they may have been at -2. So I was on 4+ saves. I had to roll about 60 saves with Crondis, and I could not roll 60. I came pretty close to rolling enough to live, actually, but not enough, so Crondis is dead. We've got Nicholas in the chat. Good evening. Yes, go Stormcast Eternals. Yeah, okay, this is how many dice I had to roll for my saves against one unit of Rattling guns. So this isn't how many attacks they had, this is how many saves I had to make. So this is how many of their attacks hit and wounded. That many. So I'll just count how many it is for confirmation. So we've got a nice blob of 10 there. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. So probably a little bit below 50. So on average, that's about enough to kill Crondis on a 4+ save at that stage. Then the other unit was able to take aim at the Paladors, but barely did anything. So when you're rolling those dice to determine the number of shots, there is an element of random chance to it. And I think these might have been saves that I made with the Paladors as well, on a 4+. So I made some very good saves for them. But it didn't matter because they got killed by the Storm Fiends anyway. So, the next round, I get the first go at round 3. I go, do not waver, 2 units fight, no units die. The Annihilators are going to go and kill the Storm Fiends, as you can imagine. The Prosecutors steam in there and murder the Clan Rats that were on this objective. And this is the primary now. The Paladors, because the Storm Fiends redeployed a little bit away from the Annihilators who were walking towards them, I wasn't 100% confident on making the charge, so I wanted to use the Paladors as backup. So they've come back to life, 3 of them, and they just charged and attacked the Gnaw hole instead. So that was going to count as a fight action, so that would give me the battle tactic even if the Annihilators had failed to get in. So, I don't have much left, but I'm scoring some decent points, and I'm a bit concerned about the Rattling guns. I don't really know how to approach them, because I don't have any units that are good for that job. You need multiple small units, so they can't do covering fire on your whole army in one go. So another 9 points there, because I'm still holding primary, a secondary, but not this secondary. My opponent goes for Seize the Centre, which should be very easy. One of the wizards, the Gracier, teleports into the corner. The other one teleports into the other corner, I think, ready to hide for next time. And the Rattling guns spread out and take aim and obliterate all but 2 Prosecutors. And the other unit wipes out all but 2 of the Grandhammer Annihilators. So they don't manage to wipe out any units this turn, so that's a bit of a bonus. So I have actually got some moves left in the game now. But the Kronspine gets into the Annihilators, kills them. But that means that the Storm Fiend can't then pile in, because it didn't charge this turn, so it doesn't have a pile in. So it wasn't able to get onto the objectives to take that off me, because a manifestation obviously can't hold it. So, not huge points scored for the Skaven there, only 5. So I'm in the lead. Onto my turn 4, because I get the priority, and I go for Take Their Land, which should be a nice easy one. And I want these woods. So I put the Paladors into the woods, because then they can't be shot. Because the way the rules work now, if you're fully inside the woods, you can't be shot at. So I'm putting them inside there. And then I attempted to charge out of the woods, which I would have gone for one of the units of Rattling guns, and then just stayed far enough back so that I was holding this piece of terrain. But they failed their charge anyway. The prosecutors that remained, I think I rallied one back, but then they got covering fired by the rattling guns, and I then made a charge into one of the Grey Seers. I didn't really fancy charging the rattling guns because I thought, well, there's 3 of them, and actually I'm not sure if I rolled high enough to charge them. Maybe I didn't actually. I think I moved him as far away as he could, but I couldn't get out of covering fire range. I couldn't send him into the woods because he's a flyer, so they could have seen him anyway. Into the enemy turn, take their land. Clan rats popping out of gnaw holes, just hanging out on bits of terrain now. You can see the enemy Grey Seer blew himself up trying to cast a spell to do 1 damage to the prosecutor. Ended up killing himself instead, which is quite funny. They do take the chance though, these Skaven wizards, because they're using 3 dice in this game and picking the highest, but you can still just roll a double 1 and fail it on 3 dice, so that's not that unlikely to happen. Paladors are safe because they're in the terrain, and you can see the final prosecutor is dead. So 10 points for the enemy, and it's slipping away now, but I do get first go at round 5. I go for Slay the Tyrant, so I need to kill an enemy hero in combat, but I've only got 1 unit left, so this is the situation. The enemy heroes are quite far away, but that's the only battle tactic I can complete that requires only 1 unit. So, the Paladors, if this guy fails to cast a teleportation spell, they're going to steam that way, throw their javelins at the rattling guns to limit how much they're going to be able to attack me back, and then try and charge the hero. Let's see what happens. So, he teleports himself all the way into the bottom right-hand corner. I then send the Paladors down there with Finest Hour, kill all the clan rats, but I didn't roll high enough on my charge to get through them to him. And then because I killed all the clan rats, I couldn't power through back onto the objective, unfortunately. So, 0 points in that round, as denoted by the thumbs down. So I'm just running out of units. And then my opponent goes for take the flanks, nice easy one. And kills the Paladors with the rattling guns. Clan rats, Grey Seers, 10 points. So it turns into a win for the Skaven. Wow, wow, wow. So that game seemed to be going quite well at one point. The rattling guns were the MVPs, obviously. They just slaughtered everything they looked at. And my list just wasn't equipped to deal with them, and neither was my thinking, because I didn't deem them as a big enough threat at the start, which obviously they were. So, should have found a way to deal with them early. The problem is, 3 of them coming back up from a gnaw hole is still terrifying, because that's still 9d6 shots coming at you. So even when you kill them, if they come back to life. So yeah, I'm not sure how to deal with that kind of damage output. I do lack ward saves in this list though, outside of the prosecutors. So I took pictures of the armies at lunchtime on day 2. And we've got some lovely corn on ancient juggernauts there. We have got what appears to be ogres, very stylish looking, very nice snow bases, and a nice horn-headed giant there with... Is that part of Crondis? The lower body of Crondis. What's the upper torso from? Anyone recognise that? Very cool anyway. Then we've got some very gribbly Nurgle, plenty of pustules going on there. Skaven that I just played against. We've got Daughters of Cain that I also played against. I think these are the ones that won the... What's it actually called now? It's either Coolest Army or Best Painted, or it's got another name as well now. But this one won that, I think. It is a very cool army, especially in Marathi. We have got in the chat... Who have we got? We've got Visibly Riley. Rattling guns rolling 3d6 once, and the unit and every gun getting that. So, I actually think it's definitely an obscene number of shots. I thought, surely that's a mistake. It must be 3d3, not d6. But no. Obviously, they can't stand up in combat. So if you've got multiple small units to hassle them with, they will just do nothing and then die. But in some matchups, like against... Let's say Mega Gargants, 4 Mega Gargants, how would they deal with that level of damage output from rattling guns? I think they would just get chewed up, wouldn't they? As long as they're not all too close together, so if you do get into one of them, you can't go straight onto the second one. There's just so much damage coming out of them, so many shots. I'm not sure how to deal with that outside of bringing several smaller units of prosecutors at the same time so they can't covering fire all of them. We have got James. Rat Boys says, thank you for the game. He said it was very fun. Excellent. Yes, I do find Skaven to be quite fun, actually. The only thing that I don't find fun in the game generally that Skaven are good at is coming back to life with units, which I've been a long time hater of units that die and don't stay dead, because I think it just slows the game down. I think if they want to make units more survivable, just give them more wounds, more models, better saves or something. I think keep coming back to life for undead and demons, anything that should bring in units in some kind of supernatural way. I think Skaven should be able to add models back to units. I think that's well within the fluff of Skaven. They just scurry more dudes out of the sewer to join the ranks. But equally, some of them should run away as well, like the old battle shock used to work. You would think rats would scurry away as well to hide if the battle's not going their way. So you know how Stormcast kept the finest hour rule? Maybe Skaven should have kept some form of battle shock. In my opinion, I think that would suit them quite well. You don't have to make it the way it was before, just some kind of mechanic. And obviously you'd rebalance them around that, so it wouldn't just be a nerf. I think that would just be a cool thematic choice. I think in general things coming back to life is bad though, it just slows the game down, and it's a feel bad mechanic because you've accomplished something by killing the enemy, and then they just pop up again, which Stormcast can obviously do as well. So it's not just me critiquing all the other armies out there. I think it's just general negative design. I'm not going to say bad design, I think it's negative design. Then we've got some Sylvaneth, very, very spicy and leaf covered. We've got some armies that hide in their box, not really out on display, but they can't hide from me. So we still get a picture of this, which is quite cool, isn't it? Then we've got some Troggoths, who are very cool indeed. Very colourful. Then some more hiding on their trays. We've got some more Ogres. Visibly Riley says, it's just messy, as you can split fire with the Rattling guns and have to roll each batch separately for a number of shots. Actually, it was possibly the game that took the longest of them all, and it was mostly because of the number of dice that the Rattling guns had to roll. It wasn't from slow play on anybody's part. It's just the number of dice that had to be rolled. So, then we've got some lovely demons. Very stylish. On to the final round. So, you may have noticed that I'm on 4 losses so far. So I'm seriously gunning for the spoon. I think it's a combination of this list maybe not being what I hoped it would be, not having much practice with the list, so not really having a clear plan of what to do with it. Because at this stage, after those 4 games, I've tried throwing things into combat and killing things, and it hasn't worked. So I'm going to just totally change my approach going into Game 5, try and do something different that maybe this list isn't even suited for, but I'm going to try it anyway. Jaws of Gallet. So, 5 objectives. The underdog deletes one at the end of their turn if they want. Quite straightforward, and I always lose on this battle plan because I always take the lead at the start and then my opponent starts deleting my objectives and bedding in their Death Star on the remaining objectives, and I can't chew through the wounds. So, very different strategy in this one. I'm up against Be'lakor, the foul beast himself. Let me crack open this enemy list for you as well. So, round 5. So we've got Be'lakor, of course. So what does Be'lakor do? He's got a really good save. It's 4+, but it's an ethereal save, so you can never affect it. You can get a ward save as well. You can get a better ward save if he's around demons to pass the wounds off. He has the ability to put Strike Last on you in the enemy turn. So in your turn, when you're fighting against Be'lakor, he can put Strike Last onto you, which is scary. He can also, once per game, point at a unit and say, hey, you probably can't do anything this turn. Which is I think everything you want to do, every ability you use is on a 3+ that you can't do it. So it's very unlikely you'll be able to reach combat, and even then you're less likely to be able to fight when you get there. So obviously that's another piece of negative game design as well, the ability to stop units doing things, which is actually my golden rule in gaming. If I'm ever designing rules for something, I think making a player like skip their turn or stopping units from doing anything is a big no-no in game design for me. I think rather just making them slightly less effective at doing what they do is much better, rather than saying, no, you're not even allowed to attempt this. So I don't like that as game design, but with Be'lakor it is limited to once per game, so that does mitigate it. But I think you should just give him a cool ability that he can do all the time, instead of having an ability that would be broken if you could do it all the time and only letting him do it once. Something a bit more positive, something that lets him do something cool rather than stopping the enemy doing cool things, is my general gaming ethos. So what else have we got in there with Be'lakor? We've got some demons and we've got some Varangard. So we've got Bloodletters reinforced, which are hanging out with Be'lakor, so they're quite scary. Then they've got their little matey boy there, who is a Centurion Marshal, who can strike and then drag another unit into strike first with him. Well, not strike first, but strike after him. And for the entire game, I was just calling him Baby Kragnos, because that's what it looks like to me. And I think that's a cool concept for a unit, just a little baby Kragnos running around. Just like a full-size Kragnos, but with a really high-pitched voice. That's how I was visualising this guy the whole time. Apparently it's a Warcry unit that I don't think I've ever seen before. So I'm officially going to be referring to him as Baby Kragnos throughout this report. In the regiment with him are the Flamers of Tzeentch, who are around here somewhere, or they might be off the table right now, ready to pop up. They're reinforced, by the way, and the reinforced Varangard, so very scary. One of the scariest units in the game. 660 points for a big cavalry unit, lots of wounds. They can fight twice, once per game as well. They just wipe things out, and they can survive quite well. Good armour. There's also Screamers of Tzeentch here, just 3 of those. They're not that great. Oh, there's the Flamers. So 6 Flamers, they've got some good shooting output. Fairly similar to like the Rattling guns, but different, not as many shots. Then that's it. So let's go back to the wide shot and talk about my tactics here. So you can see I've gone for quite a spread out approach here. I've got my units that can teleport using the portal next to it, obviously. Krondys is going to go that way. Paladors are going to go that way. So I've got my 2 big, most expensive units opposite sides of the table. The thinking is, I've been losing every game so far because I've been just going into combat, trying to debuff the enemy and kill them. Doing a fair bit of killing, but then getting killed in return faster than I'm killing the enemy. So instead, I'm going to try to divide up the enemy in this game. I want some of the units to come down this way, some to go that way, so that then I can pick them off when they can't support each other. Basically the way that I would have liked to have played against the ogres with all the Thunder Tusks, if they didn't have the threat range of the entire table, so I didn't feel like it was that viable. In this game, there's no run and charge ability, there's not a huge amount of speed outside of Be'lakor, and the Varangard are relatively fast. Everything else not as fast as what I've got. So I'm going to try and use my speed, pull them apart, and I want to become the underdog as well, so I'm not on any objectives at the start of the game. So I'm going to try and see how many my opponent scores by giving away the first turn, and then I'm going to try and score less than them, so I become the underdog and then can start deleting objectives. That's my plan. And then if the enemy are pulled right into the corners to fight Krondys and the Paladors, if one of those fights isn't going my way, I can just delete the objective there. So the enemy have got powerful units that aren't actually controlling the scoring areas on the table then. So that is the plan. So I think this battle plan actually needs a bit of a rewrite, because you should never want to intentionally make yourself the underdog because it's so strong. So I think that needs toning down a bit. Maybe if you could delete an objective that you're controlling and there's a dice roll attached to it, rather than just being automatic, maybe that'd be a bit less strong. Okay, so Annihilator's in the sky, of course. And I give away the first turn, and my opponent goes for Seize the Centre, which is the usual turn 1 play. I've brought the Purple Sun in, though, to hang out there as well, with a bit of a counter spell. So Be'lakor, Bloodletters are holding the centre. The Varangard are staying back, the Screamers are staying back, and obviously this is to screen out anyone landing there to attack the Varangard, who are definitely my first option as who I want to murder. 10 points for the opposition, so I'm going to try and score 8 points now. So, I go for attack on 2 fronts, take 2 objectives that I didn't control, and one of them from my opponent. So, I'm going to try and take one with Krondys. But first of all, actually, what I was going to do was use the Prosecutors to attack the Varangard by popping up behind them. So I put Finest Hour on them, at which point Be'lakor decided actually that's quite a scary idea. Prosecutors, who have got anti-cavalry extra rend, coming to attack my Varangard with a 3 dice charge. So Be'lakor snaps his fingers, points at them and says, hey, you're probably not allowed to do anything. So the reason they're allowed to get here is because I teleported them with the portal, which means they're not using an ability to do that move. It's an ability on the portal's war scroll, so they don't have to roll for that. So they've teleported out the way, so they're not going to be able to make use of Finest Hour. But on the plus side, it has drawn out Be'lakor's ability. I'm glad he's using it now and isn't using it on something that's way more expensive. So I cast -1 to hit spell on Be'lakor. So if the enemy are going next, he's going to struggle to do anything. The Paladors go and kill the Krondspine, which was... yeah, you could see it there. So I just don't want to engage Be'lakor yet. I want this objective as well. And Krondys takes this one. I intentionally leave this objective alone. I wasn't on it. I only want to take 2 because I only want to score 8 points so I can be the underdog. That's the quest marked objective up there with the Varangard on it. So after I changed my plan for the Prosecutors, who were going to drop in here, I had the option of bringing the Annihilators in there. But I think the Varangard would have just redeployed, and as soon as they do that, the Annihilators are stuck all the way out there with no way of moving faster. They just move forward a few inches a turn and never fight anything. So I'm holding them off, and the Prosecutors just went to hide. The Questors have tucked themselves right against the back of the table as well. And the Paladors went all the way up here, so I'm now presenting all these different threats in different places, so the enemy can't consolidate their position onto one of my units. You can see that Krondys got in and killed the Flamers as well. He did take some damage though. If we look, he's down to 9 wounds because he took some covering fire on the way in and then he killed them in combat. So the Flamers are dead, but 3 could come back at some point. But apparently the demons coming back is tied to Be'lakor, so he needs to be alive as well. So I get 8 points, so I'm now the underdog. Woo! Objective 1 met. Into the enemy turn. Be'lakor is chasing after the Paladors along with the Screamers, but he's still on -1 to hit. In this turn I also cast -1 charge dice onto the Varangard because I don't want them to reach Krondys. And the Bloodletters and the Centurion Marshal or Baby Kragnos are heading over this way as well. I redeploy. I think I just redeployed about 2 inches, was it? Not very much. But it's enough to make it a... it may have been 3 inches I redeployed, actually. So enough to make it a charge of a 6 required on the dice for the Varangard. And they only have 1 charge dice now, so very unlikely they're going to make it in even with a reroll. Bloodletters are more likely, they're 9 inches away. The Varangard... not the Varangard, the Paladors, because the enemy had positioned multiple units exactly 3 inches away, then covering fire, I targeted the Screamers, hoping that I would just kill them and then take away Be'lakor's ward save, but I didn't do much at all with the Paladors shooting there. It was very disappointing. Then the Varangard fail their charge after the redeploy from Krondys. The Bloodletters also fail their charge. So Krondys is going to survive the round, which is good. Be'lakor does get into combat with the Paladors, but he's at -1 to hit, so I'm less scared than I would normally be. He gets in there, starts whacking them around, kills a couple, and then they do a little bit of damage back to him. 6 points for the enemy. Because my opponent did not complete a battle tactic in that round, because it was attack on 2 fronts, and my opponent was going to try and take this objective, I think. But after that was chosen, that's when I then put the -1 charge dice onto the Vanguard, and then redeployed successfully to get away from both units. So denied the battle tactic there with Crondis. And you can see now how this battlefield is looking very tempting for Annihilators, because I've got a good place for them to land where there's 2 different units that I can have 9 inches away if I land them here, so they can't both redeploy. Crondis is really close to the Vanguard, so he's going to be able to hit them. He can go up to about here. Questors could get onto their quest-marked objective now, because there's no enemies on it, if they want to hang out there. The Paladors can hold off Be'lakor for a little while, because they've got plenty of wounds to go. And the Prosecutors can just reposition and wait for their moment to shine now, because it's time for the Annihilators. So, onto my turn. Take their land. I pick this piece of terrain at the back right, and you can see that the Questors came in up there, and the Annihilators teleported down as well, but they failed both their charges, as usual. So it was down to Crondis to go and deal with the Vanguard. He took down some of them, so there's only 3 left, and then they chose to fight twice this turn. But I also cast -1 to wound on them and -1 to save, so they weren't able to accomplish much there. 1 Palador still alive against Be'lakor with 4 wounds. Why is that important? Well, that means, because I don't want to just stay there and get killed by him next turn, so if it's my turn next, what I would like to do is just run away from Be'lakor and survive, because I'll only take D3 wounds, so I'll definitely live, and that means I've got another unit threatening to do things like take the flanks later on, which means that the enemy has to come and get me, probably. So that's going to drag Be'lakor away from the action, hopefully. So I get 10 points that round, and finishing the round as the underdog, I choose to delete the objective that Be'lakor is standing on. So, that objective's going to be gone. I'm going to run away if I go next. Let's find out. I decide to take the turn, which means I can't do a battle tactic this turn because it's a double, and I'm not behind. So, the Prosecutors then use the teleport chambers to teleport behind the Vanguard and charge in there, and then with Crondis they whittle them down to 1 model now. The Questors are just hanging out waiting for take the flanks to come up as an opportunity. Palador runs away from Be'lakor. So Be'lakor's dilemma, does he chase after 1 Palador with 3 wounds left and take himself out the game forever? Or not? The Annihilators make it into the Centaur, Centurion, Baby Kragnos, and the Bloodletters and start swinging. They take out loads of Bloodletters actually, but then 3 of them come back to life at the end of combat. You can see I also cast -1 to wound on the Bloodletters. The reason I'm getting so many of these debuffs off is because I'm doing 1 every turn in the enemy turn as well. I'm doing 1 in the enemy turn and 2 in my own turn, so there will be points where you see multiples of these debuffs all on at once. So I'm just trying to make them way less effective at combat and easier for me to kill. So Crondis is actually showing probably how I should have been using him for the whole game, really, rather than just throwing everything in and getting into a war of attrition where Stormcast aren't designed for that. The list was built to try and do that, but they're clearly not built that way as a rule. So I score 6, which is the maximum because I didn't have a battle tactic since I took the double, and now my opponent is the permanent underdog for a while, at least. My opponent goes for Slay the Entourage on the Palador, who's running away. Be'lakor decides not to join in the chase, though. Be'lakor's going onto this objective down here beside my portal. Crondis gets down to 1 wound after trying a counter spell, miscasts and hurts himself, so he's got 1 wound left. Screamers and the Flamers go after the Palador, who redeploys 5 inches all the way into the corner of the table. So the Kronspine can't charge me now, it's too far away. So it's down to the Screamers to try and kill that last Palador for the battle tactic. Crondis is killed by the final Vanguard, which is okay because he's kind of done his job now. Screamers fail their charge, so the Palador is going to live, so that's going to deny the tactic, and then the Prosecutors finish off the final Vanguard with their -1 save debuff. So the Prosecutors had +1 rend against cavalry. So in this fight, they were at -3 on the Vanguard because of Crondis adding the debuff. So you can see how Crondis does synergize with these low rend units to really boost that. The Annihilators and the Bloodletters and Baby Kragnos all keep swinging and slowly whittling each other down. It looks like the Annihilators are slowly coming out on top though. I've been splitting the attacks to try and kill this guy as well, but I keep leaving him alive on just a small number of wounds. So my opponent only scores 4 that round. And my opponent then deletes the objective, which was here. Which my opponent actually held, but knew I was about to take it. We've got Dave in the chat, community legend. Yes, Dave was actually at the event, which I believe he said was the first time he's been to the TSN arena. And hopefully, fun time was had by all. We didn't get to play. Maybe next time. I'm sure you'll be up for another event there at some point. Or down for another event. I can't remember which direction you're coming from. I think you're generally in the north, aren't you? And yes, I don't waste any time. Got home, ate some food, immediately start the live stream. And then I've got furious painting to be doing all evening for my secret old world project. Okay, so into the next turn. You can see my opponent actually takes the double now. After deleting that objective, Be'lakor moves into the centre to try and get involved in this fight with the Annihilators. Krondspine moves down here. Possibly wants to charge my terrain, possibly wants to stop me teleporting onto this objective, which is a good idea. A couple of Annihilators get shot, or at least one of them does, by the Flamers. My Prosecutor, so Be'lakor fails his charge, first of all. It was something like 8 or 9, maybe 9 inches he needed to get in, but he failed. The Prosecutors then saw, I've got command points. Let's countercharge, because Be'lakor's not in the fight, so let's go in there and try and turn this in our favour, this central battle here. So, Prosecutors get into the Centurion Marshal, and as a result of that, I just wipe out the centre. So that's really good. The Screamer and the Palador get into a fight, but they're both just clinging on to life at the moment. So my opponent is down to Be'lakor, 3 Flamers, and a Screamer, and it's my turn next. So I'm going to throw everything at Be'lakor and try and kill him now. So I go for take the flanks. So I need to keep the Palador alive, and that is successful. So I don't actually kill the Screamer, but I do live, so that's okay. The Questors stay over there on their favourite objective. They've barely done anything in this game. They haven't really contributed outside of sit there on that objective, but they're now contributing to take the flanks as well. The Annihilators and the Prosecutors get into Be'lakor. The Annihilators go first. They do loads of wounds, and Be'lakor makes some good saves, so he's just alive for that. Then he swings at the Prosecutors, kills 3 of them, and then the Prosecutors stab him to death, with exactly the right number of wounds to kill him as well. So Be'lakor's dead, which means the Krondspine no longer exists. And that means no more demons can come back to life. So I score a juicy 10 points there. Then onto round 5. I get the first go at round 5 and I decide, let's have a look at the wide shot here to explain the thinking behind this. So if my opponent gets the next turn, Flamers could actually kill something, and there could be battle tactics that could be scored by the enemy here. But if I go next, I can just kill everything and just win, and nothing's coming back. I can't have a battle tactic, but there'll be nothing to score against me in the enemy turn 5, so that makes up for it. So I'm just going to take the turn, take the double, and let's see if I can murder everybody. The Prosecutors get in, kill the Flamers, Palador kills the final Screamer, all the enemy are dead, and it's a nice win to finish on for the Stormcast, and it's the first time I feel like I actually played the army properly at the event. So what I wanted it to be a list that would steam into the enemy and just overwhelm them with the attacks, with the debuffs to the armour, the debuffs to the enemy hitting. But really, when I actually used it in a more sensible way, which was to split up the enemy, because I've got so much speed I can drag them to different parts of the battlefield so they can't support each other. and then I can focus in on them, because I've got units that can teleport and drop down from the sky, so I can put the focus where I need it, and the enemy possibly can't so much. So that worked out very well in this game. I was able to isolate, for example, the Valour Guard quite well, even though they were screened out early in the game, so I couldn't get to them. I was just patient, used the -1 charge dice spell to keep Crondis alive, which turned out to be very important, and then just start murdering everything. So, what's that? Me being presented with the Grand Artisan Best Army Award, 2nd place. That's right. So, Stormcast Eternals, 2nd place, Best Army Award. Very nice. And let's, while I'm giving my final thoughts, let's go for a nice heroic look at Be'lakor just before he gets charged and murdered by everybody. I can see the chat is filling up now. Let's have a look what people are saying. Dave says, great to meet you. Coming across to get to Nottingham, really enjoyed the weekend. It was a very spicy event, and you didn't even meet the host of the venue himself, Mr. Rob, who it looks like has just appeared in the chat, the Honest Wargamer there. Yes, let's go, Andy. Let's go with 1 win at an event. What a dream result. We've also got Bad Squiddo in the chat. Obviously an Age of Sigmar fanatic, and not just here to put her business across in a positive light. But yes, you should order things from Bad Squiddo Games, and if you do, I think I've actually still got a code in the video description. If you input that code, then you can get a free resin chicken with your order. I think that offer is still active. I'm sure Annie can confirm in the chat right now whether that's still active. If you've run out of chickens, let us know. Yep, it's still active. So if you want 1 small resin chicken for your basing or something, then why not place an order from Bad Squiddo? You don't even have to order the chickens, you just get 1 thrown in as long as you use that code. Which I would say is probably the best use of a promotional code that anyone's ever had on YouTube. None of this, put my code in and get 15% off whatever overrated product they're advertising that particular week. Something you really need in your life, a resin chicken. Yes, there's already a chicken rack set up for these things. We've got Dicey Guy. Dicey Guy, community legend as well, has been around for years. Is it Jan or Jan there in the chat as well? Okay, thoughts on this list. It didn't really work for the most part. No Longstrikes, and I felt the pain from not having them. Wasn't able to threaten with my shooting very much. It was all very short range shooting. The Annihilators are extremely hit and miss. And by that I mean hit or fail their charge. If they get in, they murder everything. If they don't get in, they're just a big waste, and then they probably die. So, not 100% sold on whether they're the best choice. In this list, they were the only thing that had serious punch, because there was no Karazai. There's no like concussors or fulminators or anything like that that can also do big damage. So Annihilator's definitely good for damage. The Paladors were very underwhelming with their damage throughout the whole event. And maybe they didn't get comboed with Crondis enough to get that extra rend. But it's just the number of attacks. They don't have that many, and their stats aren't that good when it comes to hitting and wounding, the Paladors. But that's not really their job to do massive damage. It's the fact that they can do some damage, but also be a huge amount of wounds, and they're also ridiculously fast. So that definitely makes them a worthwhile part of the army. The Prosecutors, they had their moment to shine in this game because all the parts, the stars aligned, and it all came together for them when they had a cavalry unit to hit, when they had the extra rend against them. They had Crondis there with the extra -1 on the save, and then they got a charge in. So they're able to do some good damage. But in general, I'm feeling they're very fragile, the Prosecutors. Even with the 5+ ward they had for the entire tournament, it didn't save them that much. So I'm thinking I would have been better off dropping that unit down to 3, using it for its intended purpose, which is for battle tactics and for occasional lone hero murder, where they can get into a small crevice in enemy lines and kill a small hero, and then using the other points to bring some Praetors to give Crondis a ward save. Or bringing some Vigilors to give everyone +1 to hit against a specific target. Either of those I think would have been much better than the Prosecutors being reinforced in this list. I think that would have helped hugely. Questors, they don't often accomplish that much in the game. I mainly pick them because I really like the models, and I spent so long painting their cloaks. They do have a good role. They give you a nice teleport, which is good for battle tactics. They give you a nice solid survivable unit that is quite points efficient for the number of wounds you're getting in there. It's comparable to like Liberators. They're not that much more expensive. And so yeah, so they're more towards that end of the scale than like Annihilators, who have way less wounds and are way more expensive. So they're quite solid for that role. So the Questors and the Paladors, underwhelming damage output, but they're quite survivable. Paladors have the speed, Questors have the teleport, so they do have another role that kind of makes up for that. So it's really the Prosecutors that disappointed me in this one. Crondis also died every time he got attacked, pretty much, in the whole event. So I think giving him the Praetors for that ward save, probably a good idea. Or just using him as Karazai, which seems to go well, also. So I've got choices. I've also got a million other units in the cabinet that I'm looking at right now. So I can do all kinds of different lists with the Stormcast. And then maybe one day I'll put out a different army that isn't Stormcast or isn't Sons of Behemat, who aren't really very fun at the moment in the game, it seems. They're not very good at battle tactics. So when they get their new book, maybe, they'll give them some better ways to play and ways to win. That'll be fun to see. Dicey Guy says, I am old, it's true. Yes, you must be getting pretty old now. Like all of us are. Those of us that were on the glory days of Wargaming YouTube, which was like 2013, when all of us were, if we had 8 subscribers, we were just living the dream. We were being sent free Drop Zone Commander starter sets and like building our houses out of them. Some people were getting multiples of them. Those were the days. Back when all you needed was 8 subscribers and you could get free stuff constantly. I don't think it's quite the same anymore. I don't get offered as much stuff anymore, even though my subscriber count has gone up significantly since then. I do still get offered things though. And I haven't actually accepted anything free that I can remember for quite some time for promotional purposes. Because usually I would have to... It has to be something I want to do something with, because I've only got limited space. And I can't just hold on to loads of stuff I'm never going to use just because it was free. And then you generally have to do something with it and then review it as well. So I haven't really been accepting stuff. What was the last free stuff I got? It could have been one that I actually solicited. It could have been the backpack from KR actually that I reviewed for army transport. So you can pack like 4 KR cases into it. So that thing has definitely been very useful. And that's something I specifically asked them, hey, I've got this YouTube channel with such and such number of subscribers. I want to do a video on transporting my army. Can you do a discount on this cool backpack? I've already got the cases to go inside. So that wasn't even, they didn't seek me out to offer it to me. That was definitely a product I already wanted to use. So, yeah, the good old days. Are you hearing that, Wargaming companies? Any of you still watching this video at this point, which I'm sure, of course, all of you are? Offer me some good free stuff. Maybe I'll accept it, maybe I'll just ignore your messages. Okay, time to wrap this one up. What do we think? What's the best kind of Stormcast list at the moment you can put out? Should I persist with this kind of build? Should I try it with the Prosecutors reduced and something else to come in to fix the glaring issues with the list? Should I try something totally different next time? Let me know. Next week it's Old World, and if I can paint ferociously all week and get one model finished, which is a very large model, then I'll be able to field a totally new, Old World army. Totally new because I only acquired it recently. Old because all the models are from 1998 or older. The oldest one in there, I believe, is 1987. So it's an old army, but it's also new, and I'm working on that for next week. So we'll see if I can get it finished on time. And after that, what have we got? let's have a look at the calendar here. So let's see when the next Sigmar event is. The next one is in about a month. So not too much longer to wait. I'm generally at the moment attending per month 1 Age of Sigmar, 1 Old World, 1 Star Wars Shatterpoint. And then I try and get a Kings of War event in as well each month. But it's not always easy to get those, because there aren't that many hosted in this area for some reason. Those are the main 4 game systems I'm trying to play at tournaments. There's obviously going to be battle reports interspersed as well. As you guys says, GW and Mantic is not hooking up. Mantic have given me free stuff over the years, just not that recently. What was the last thing Mantic gave me for free? It could have been when I made some content on when they brought out the new Abyssal Dwarves. So when would that have been? Just before lockdown, I think. So I think that was the last free stuff I had from Mantic. But considering at the time my channel was probably primarily Kings of War, because that's what I was playing the most back then, and my influence was getting a lot of people into that game, then they probably got a pretty good deal there, just giving me a few bits of resin and plastic. What else? Did they give me... They might have given me some Night Stalkers as well, some Night Stalker sprues when they were new, so that might be the most recent one. Yeah, that was only a few years ago. So yeah, Mantic occasionally do give me some stuff. And maybe it depends whether people I know in the company who generally think, who do we want to give stuff to for video purposes? Who are we going to get good value out of? The people that already know me. Or whether they leave the company and then someone else comes in who's not heard of me and I'm just not on their list. So that could be it. Or Annie could be right. It could be since I got a haircut, people stopped offering free stuff. I'm not sure that entirely coincides though. So I don't know whether hair length has any impact on free stuff offers. So, don't forget everybody, check out all the links in the description, including that Bad Squiddo chicken code if you're going to be ordering anything from there. Also, the various social media shenanigans down there as well. There's Discord server, Facebook group, and all that good stuff. And obviously, if you want me to attend more tournaments and keep reporting on them, and adding new stuff and new armies all the time to keep this content fresh, spicy, succulent, tender, moist, finger-licking good, dishlicious, then why not pledge your entire life savings to the PayPal or Patreon links down there as well? Because really, what would you be doing with it otherwise? You'd probably just be squandering it. Whereas you could see it going to a good cause. I'll just let that thought sit for a moment. And thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks for the chat, which has been... Let's see, it was pretty wild as I was wrapping up the video, actually, which extended it for a good 20 minutes, I think. So well done there. And all that remains to be said is... Actually, also report, I did not finish last. There you go, just to let you know. Just to be clear, all that remains to be said is... Good night out there. Whatever you are.